Hopefully I'll get this will be a good one for all three of us. Okay. Buckle for safety. And now we're live! Woohoo! Okay. All right.
Right.
That's how I start every episode. All right. Apparently I just do that. So, I'm here today with Isaac Schlueter of NPM, Jeff Atwood, more well known as a blogger of Coding Horror and Twitter handle Coding Horror. Previous startup for Jeff was Stack Exchange, which is a hugely popular site, and is now working on Discourse. And Isaac Schlueter is previously at Yahoo.
Yahoo, then Joyent, then
Then Joyent. Yeah, that's right. They owned NPM for a little bit, didn't they?
They never owned NPM. No. Fill out your CIIAA when you get a new job. That's the moral of the story.
CIA.
That paperwork where you have to list all your inventions.
Yeah. Oh. But now at a new startup, NPM Inc.
Yep.
Right? And that is Node.js package manager. And making a business around that. So we're here just to kind of meet and talk, not so much about our startups, but that is, of course, a big thing that's bringing us together, but about startup life and what that means.
I think interesting note. This is actually the second time I met you.
That
startup life right there, though, because
you meet people constantly.
I know.
So Jeff and I, we both around the same time moved out to the Bay Area. You moved about 8 years ago.
Moved here in 2005.
2005. Oh, 10 years ago. Shit. We were both in North Carolina. We were buddies. We'd go over and do. No, that's not. We lived far apart in North Carolina. But we knew each other back then for blogs and shit.
Well, it's funny. Let me tell a little story because I knew you because at the job I was at, GlaxoSmithKline, we had some interactions with Lotus Notes, and we were very bitter about these interactions.
Oh, yeah.
And so I found your blog, and so you were a convenient person to blame for all that. It's like, God damn, that Damien Katz making us use Lotus Notes.
And every time I tell people I used to work on it, I flinch a little
Yeah. No, you worked on a cool part of it. Your stories were really good. It was actually really early. It was probably like 1990, I want to say 1994.
Oh, that's probably earlier than I ever.
Yeah, well, I had a PC that I paid all this money for. I was just out of college, right? I graduated from college in 92. I paid all this money for this fancy PC and had all this memory, which back then was like, 2 megabytes of memory. It wasn't much, but it was like a lot for the time. And somebody gave me like a copy of Lotus Notes. I was like, I'll check it out. And it was like the slowest program I'd ever used. Yeah. I was like, I got all this memory, and like it's crawling. Like
eventually, like Moore's Law. Advanced to the point where Lotus Notes wasn't this a giant bloated thing. So then they decided, well, that's not good. We're gonna marry it to Eclipse.
Put more stuff in there.
They put Lotus Notes as a plugin inside of Eclipse and said that now it's good and slow again.
Yeah.
When computers get fast enough, we'll just run all that in a web browser.
So that's the trend, right? That's kind of a little bit of Atwood law. That anything that can't be written in JavaScript will, and that's kind of
banking on that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about founding startups. So I'll start. I created CouchDB as a separate project. My own little project that I was doing just to learn about how to do databases. I really went into it with, this is a learning experience for me. And I thought, if I pull this off, it could be popular. But I never had it where it had to be popular in my head. So that just gave me the courage to move forward, because there were years of me working on it where nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. And then I put JavaScript into the database. I was the first guy to do that. And then I switched over from this crazy XML format, which had its own schema, to JSON. And everything just got simpler and easier using the JSON, both the server and the client. And JavaScript, instead of my own homegrown language for doing MapReduce was something that people already knew. And that's when it really started taking off.
And that was still just you by yourself at that point?
Yes. It was me and a guy named Jan Leonard and there were just a few other people that were helping, and but not doing much.
But it was all open source from the start,
It was
right?
all open source. I did GPL. Then IBM came along, and the CTO of IBM Information Management, which includes like DB2 and Informix and I don't know, other weird databases nobody's ever heard of, but are entrenched in the enterprise. It's like a $10 million a year business, or at least it was back then. They said, hey, we think this is cool. We want to pay you to work on this and open source it to Apache.
I think I saw some talk you gave before it even went to Apache, where you were talking about, I think it was when you were at IBM, or the talk was at IBM or something.
It was probably Ruby. Uh-oh. Audio might be bad for a while. All right. It was Ruby Fringe. I gave a wildly successful talk. I gave a bunch of bad talks too, but nobody remembers those, fortunately.
Yeah, it kind of made the rounds around the server-side JS folks. Server-side JS before Node was a whole different kind of thing. There was
Rhino, which was compiled to Java.
Yeah, you could do a lot of interesting things with Rhino. There was SpiderMonkey, which was at the time not as pleasant to bind to as
originally. I put SpiderMonkey into CouchDB, and I remember looking at the code base like, man, this seems weirdly familiar. And then I remembered, we embedded this inside of Lotus Notes years ago, and it was the exact same engine.
Yeah.
We licensed with Mozilla before it was all open source. So anyway, then it just blew up in popularity, especially after the JavaScript JSON thing, and then the community grew, and the VC said, hey, there's something here. And I flew out to Austin to speak at, I think it was Joel Spolsky conference.
Really?
Dev Days? This was a long time ago.
I don't think that was in Austin. That wasn't in Austin, though.
It was somewhere in Austin. I don't remember who it was.
If it was 2010, it could have been Dev Days.
But a venture capitalist flew out to see me and just have drinks with me. And it's like, oh, this is serious. These people, they really want to do this. So then I got venture capital funding, $2 million. And then the startup stuff, like, that was just the start of the nightmare, That's when it's like everything, like, oh, you're in it now, kid. Because then you got people on payroll, and you got to build a business model, and now everybody's following your dreams, and, like, they've got families to support.
Yep.
And it was crazy stressful. I moved my wife and 3 kids out here, and just the stress of doing a startup and 3 kids and everything. It really took its toll on me. Eventually, Couch One merged with a company called Membase to be called Couchbase. And then it was like we had some people who actually knew how to run a business. Like, I just know engineering. And figured out a business model and how to grow it. And now it's doing crazy well. And I've been out of it almost 2 years now. But there's 300 people. And last time I'm aware, they had a half or valuation. And now other people are taking care of all that stuff, and I'm just doing this show. Now, Jeff, you started, you moved out here originally like be a consulting company guy or something, right?
Yeah, I moved out to join a company called Vertigo Software, which is basically like boutique Microsoft consulting. And as part of that, my blog was really blowing up like around 2007, 2008, and blowing up so much that I was like, wow, this is like where I should be spending my time, because I could go to work and talk to 10 or 20 people, or I could be on my blog talking to 40,000 people. So it started to seem kind of quaint to go to work, and I was like, well, what do I do with this energy? So I started emailing people that I respected online. One of them was Joel Spolsky, and he replied and said, hey, I got an idea when I talked to him about this site, Experts Exchange. He's like, it's really...
Experts Exchange?
Experts Exchange. He said, the information is good, and it comes up a lot in our search results, but it's not a pleasant experience. It's just like being on a used car sales lot. And that was his idea, and I was looking for an idea. I'm not a great idea person, really. I'm a good execution person. And I said, that's a brilliant idea. I would love to build a community like that. And
Yeah,
that
but-
was the genesis of Stack Overflow. But it was just me working from home, and then Joel sort of having calls with me, because Joel was running Fog Creek. He wasn't actively programming on anything we were doing, right? So immediately I realized, like, programming by yourself is super lonely. Like, if you ever did that, I don't know how you could do it.
I did.
It's the worst.
It's
horrible.
After a while, I started to realize, like, this is changing me into something I don't want to be.
Yeah, just programming by yourself I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Literally, I couldn't do it. So I started calling my friends, people that I worked with their previous jobs, and one of them was this guy, Jared, and they happened to be available, starting with Jared. So he started working out with me, and then it was much easier to make progress. It was like ping pong, you bounce the ball, I bounce the ball. Playing ping pong by yourself is not fun, for the record. It's just like bouncing the ball off the wall. It's like, it just seemed pointless, right?
Yeah.
So the buddy system was really critical to get Stack Overflow going.
What's interesting, it's interesting that you and Joel probably had the two most popular tech blogs at the time.
Yeah, it was nice to have the audiences for sure, because we were trying to figure out, like, what do I do with this audience? I want to give them something to do that's useful, that's helpful. And Stack Overflow was that thing. Like, not everybody can be a blogger, because being a blogger is a lot of work. Being a blogger is not even cool anymore, right?
Yeah, right. What happened to blogs? It was like all over the
attention spans got shorter, I think.
It's all Tumblr now. It's all animated GIFs with words underneath them.
Yeah,
shared via Twitter.
So the structure of the company was really interesting at the beginning. It was basically just me, and then a weekly call with Joel.
Yeah.
And then it was me and my buddy, and I was just basically paying him out of pocket. So when you start a startup, since that's what this show's about, we didn't really have any money. I haven't said either, but Joel would like kick in a lot of money, but that didn't really happen.
Really?
No.
That's surprising, because I thought he was doing really well.
Well, he was.
And you didn't have like a company that you owned and ran. And there was cash cow.
I had like some savings, right? So basically, it was just running off my savings.
How long did you do that for?
Eventually, the three founders put in like I think $10,000 each. But that was it. So what made this work, Damien, was the fact that I could work for basically nothing.
Yeah.
Because I had savings. And Jared, my friend, I paid him like $1,000 a month because that's all I could afford, right? But he trusted me because he was my friend. He's like, okay, we're going to build this thing. This might work. Let's just try it, right?
Now, how did you know him?
Well, I worked with him at GlaxoSmithKline.
Oh, okay.
And I thought he was a brilliant programmer. He was just underemployed.
Now, was that when you lived in North Carolina?
Yeah, that was in North Carolina. And then after that, I needed another programmer, so I reached out to another friend of mine, Jeff Dalgas, who I knew from my previous career writing 911 software. Another really brilliant programmer that was just basically underemployed.
You wrote 911 software?
Yeah, I did. Wow. It's not good.
What does that mean?
Software that handles the 911 calls.
Okay, so they're in there and they say, okay, we're going to send this guy.
Dispatchers sit on computers and wait for the calls to come in, and that's how it works. It definitely taught me a lot about like reliability.
It's basically like my call center software, but it can't break.
Yeah, exactly, like call center software, but for dispatchers that dispatch police and EMTs and ambulances and all that stuff.
Wow.
So Jeff was also available, and I paid him like $1,000 a month because that's all I could afford. And so at the beginning, it was like very, stitched together by just like basically somebody had to have some savings.
Now I'm surprised that you didn't get some funding like right away because your name and Joel's name were very well known.
This was an experiment. Like, no, there was no funding. All we did was put in I think eventually we put in $10,000 to make an LLC.
Did you ever have you taken any VC
Well, in
since?
2010, so we were doing this for a while, and I think part of the truth is as long as you have talented people that don't need a ton of money to live, you can build an amazing stuff now. It's not that expensive. I mean, software is not expensive.
Well, if you're hired in the Bay Area, everybody needs a lot of money to live.
Well, that's right. But if you're starting with a group of friends who can live on like ramen salaries, right, you can build a big thing. So that's essentially what happened. And then by 2010, VC started pinging us a little bit. And Joel had always been really opposed to venture capital. If you read his old blog, he's like, venture capital is bullshit. But I think, he had been at Fog Creek a long time, and I think he was ready to sort of see the other side.
I was CEO. I had spent 23 hours a day in my house writing Couch TV. I work from home, so I'm there, and I just go out and exercise once a day. And,
when did you get an office? What year was that? 2010? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, so anyway, now, so you were able to cash out some money, and you can. I don't remember. You don't want people to know that. Anything you say here, I can edit it out.
I'm not supposed to talk specifics, but I do have a lot of shares in Stack Exchange. I still have a good relationship with those guys.
Yeah.
it just got to a point in in 2011 where we kind of solved our main problem. I mean, Express Exchange was completely displaced.
Yeah.
We were on basically version 3.0 of the software. I'd finally built. I have this theory that it takes 3 years to build the thing you actually wanted to build when you started on day zero.
Yeah.
We had done that, and I felt really good about where we are. I just had twins, which is a major life inflection. I was also very burned out from just what you talked about of just you feel like, because I was coming from a traditional job. If this didn't work out, I had to go crawl back to some other job, right? I had to crawl back and say, oh, my thing failed, that it didn't work, and now I'm just an employee again, and failure's not really an option. So you kind of do everything you can. Literally, you spend all your waking moments thinking, how can I make this work?
Well,
that does take its
that
toll.
whole thing is, especially now when you've got employees, when people share your dream, that's a great feeling. But then the other side of that is, shit, if I don't come through for these guys, they're going to be out on the street. Yeah. They got families to feed.
On the other hand, the advantage of that is now you've got a bunch of people who are committed for their own reasons to whatever you wanted to do in the first place.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so you have there's actually some benefit to that, but the responsibility can be kind of crippling.
Whew, it's hot. It's getting hot today.
Yeah, it's warm.
So you
around
you
2012
left after a while.
Yeah, that was started planning in 2011, and then I left in 2012. And I think that was a really good decision in retrospect because, it was good to take a step back. The company was doing great. It was like pushing a boulder downhill. I mean, it wasn't like there was anything wrong. I totally trusted the people there. Joel is great. All the key employees are great. Stack is very community driven. It's all about the philosophy of a programmer in Brazil helping a programmer in New Jersey, right? And the company structure needed to reflect that. I was always very adamant with Joel that we had to have a big remote component of the team. Because Stack is remote. It's a programmer in Brazil helping a programmer in New Jersey. The company structure has to reflect what the product does. And he seemed to get that, and
I remember the gamification. So early on, you got me hooked on BF2, and you played stuff like that. I remember one time you sent me an old video card. This is when I was still in North Carolina. I think you remember.
Oh, right.
That.
I remember that. I forgot about that.
So you were really into games.
Yeah.
And I remember it struck me when you were really interested in leveling up and figuring out all the stuff to do in Battlefield to get to the next points. And then it seemed like once you leveled out, you lost interest. But
well, there's a natural cycle to some games. There's games you play for your whole life, and then there's games you play until the next better game comes along, right? It's a very different set of philosophies.
I played BF2 until 3 years ago. I can play
wow, you were still playing that?
Yeah,
Battlefield 3 was that, man. What are you doing?
You know what? It was hard.
Yeah.
I kept getting killed too much. I'm like, fuck this. I'm going back to the game I'm good at.
Yeah. Well, the way we viewed it was just, how do we get people to do things that are healthy for themselves and healthy for the community? And that's what the gaming part was about, was sort of giving people incentive to do what they really should be doing anyway.
Well, I'm interested to know how much of that you think drove the success.
I think a fair bit, because
I think so too. I think that you guys nailed that part of it, and you got people really wanting to help other people. I mean, everybody wants to ask a question, right? But why is somebody motivated to spend their time typing out nice answers? Well,
it's really simple when you look at programmers. They're motivated by competition to some degree. The best way to get something done by a programmer is if I said to you, hey, Damien, that thing you said was hard? Well, Joe said he could do it in a couple days.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm going to do it, right? You're dealing with racehorses. You're racing horses.
Yeah. That's
so
the easiest way to get programmers motivated, too. I would try to convince people at my startup, all right, we got to do the thing. Who's going to do the thing? Nobody wants, I'll do it myself. And then, somebody's oh, no, you don't. Right. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. You don't want the CEO coding. That's bad.
Yeah, well,
that's not a good idea.
I did it too long, too.
Yeah.
We were, on day one, I was our ops team. If you don't want the CEO coding, you definitely don't want the CEO doing ops.
Because
it was bad.
You got meetings and stuff that you got to be at, but ops problems happen when they happen. You got to be on top of it.
Right. I mean, so that was our first couple hires, actually, just because we inherited. We took over the NPM registry while it was on fire.
You guys use CouchDB on that. You guys still using CouchDB?
We're using Couch as a database now.
Sweet.
It's not. There's a whole bunch of couches, a whole living room,
I know.
assortment, you might say.
It's so weird. I'm not even in that world anymore. I hear about the new one, and everyone that's more about the life.
I want to hear about the beginning of NPM. I want to hear
Yes.
how the beginning. I talked to you about how my stuff started.
All right. Yeah. So we NPM was. I didn't actually set out to make a package manager per se. I was trying to make other stuff, and there was this new Node thing. I'd been involved with server-side JS as kind of a side hobby for a while. I got tired of writing PHP on the back end and JavaScript on the front end. And you can't escape JavaScript on the front end, so that meant I needed JavaScript on the back end. And there was this kind of new entrant in the server-side JS space called Node, and people were getting very excited about it, and there was a lot of activity on the mailing list. But every time somebody would send a message to the mailing list and be like, "Oh, I wrote this new thing. It connects to a database or whatever. To install it, you got to download it from GitHub, and then download this other thing from GitHub, and then run make and copy this file over here." It was just like, this is too hard. So I wrote a little Node script to just make it easier to do that, and then started sending a bunch of pull requests to everybody to add package.json files to their repos so that I could actually install it. And then it was like, this isn't going to scale because it's all bottlenecked on me. So I need a registry that people could just publish stuff to.
Right.
And so then got involved with Michael and Jan and spun up this CouchDB thing that was running on Couch.io's. I think I was maybe your first SaaS customer.
Really?
But
did you actually pay?
no. So, so when I say customer, I mean the loosest possible sense. Yeah, user. And then it became Couch One, and I was kind of like, well, you're the only one actually using this in any kind of scale, so let's we want to test new features out on you, and you're not paying anyway, so you're our guinea pig. And then that became that spun out into Iris Couch.
Yeah.
When the Membase.
Well, what we discovered is that trying to make money being a hosting provider for just very generic backend software is really hard.